like this. Oh, so the point was, I want you to close your eyes and look at it with your inner eyes and notice the color. How many saw colors? Ah. When I had you to reach in and grab it, take it out and hold it in your hands. I said, notice, did the color change or stay the same? First impression. How many had the color change? How many didn't? How many color change? Excellent. Perfect. When I had you smell it, what happened? When I had you listen to it, what happened? Let me ask you a question. When did the smell come? When I asked for it. So you mean you saw color and you saw it moving, but there was no smell? And then you licked it. Right? Was there a taste? Oh, okay, that's fine. Taste is kind of pushing it, but my point is, the information, did I just create that information on the spot, or was the information always there, but because you didn't ask for it, you didn't get it? Boom. This is what I mean when we talk about the dynamics of the somatic search engine. All the information that you can conceive of is already in there. All you have to... Now, did you notice? I mean, some of you did, probably some of you didn't. Did you have any problem with absorption and focus during that exercise? No, you didn't. Why? Any ideas? Because I kept asking you to go in and get more information. Every time you went back inside and referenced that construct, it forced you to become more immersed through that portal. I lit up your neocortex, your cortex is like a Christmas tree. As far as you know, that was your reality for that time. You were in two worlds simultaneously, but it was all one world. Get it? This is how you change fast. You can make, and we're focusing on making good things better, but it works the same way for anything you want to get rid of. So when we have a problem with absorption and focus, all we do is ask for information, and the search engine will provide it. Now that's beyond just entry level. There's other, like when I was working with Timothy, right? And I said, the answer's in the question, right? For most of you at this level, your primary challenge is going to be absorption and focus. Just ask for more information. Now, I don't want you to believe anything I just told you. I want you to go out and find human beings in their natural habitat who have shit they want to get rid of or shit they want to make better, and use this with them. Spin that shit, spin it up, spin it away. We're going to do that in a minute. Timothy.
I've tried it, and I've stepped away from it. When I try to, let's say I have something I want to get rid of, and I use the five senses, I find it's a little, is it still beneficial to do it? Because sometimes I feel like, for me at least, the emotion is a little heavier. So is that a good way to provoke something?
Well, you're going to provoke something, right? And again, the more you start digging it out, the reason I did this whole thing with the somatic search engine wasn't so you can go after the smells and the tastes and the sounds and all that other stuff. I did it to show you that you get what you ask for. And the ultimate conclusion to that is the answer to the problem is in the way you ask the question. The solution is always in the question. So I'll give you one more principle that relates directly to this. Some of you get it right away, some of you might have to meditate on it for a little bit. What the nervous system creates, the nervous system accepts. Human beings, human nervous systems never resist themselves. So as a hypnotist, Lisa can come to me and she says, I want you to help me grow my cleavage or whatever. That's her specialty, by the way. She does hypnotic breast enhancements. She's a master at it. She can go up and down a cup size like you can pop popcorn. And she's a great stage hypnotist. So, but my point is, yeah, I'm very serious, 100%. Here we go. I don't know when I lost control. All I had to do was mention boobies. There we go. The lizard Good reigns supreme. But here's the thing. Lisa can come to me and I can give her suggestions that I make up, and they have a high probability of being effective. But if Lisa creates her own suggestions, which is going to be the most effective? Hers. Why? Because they came from her system. When you point to something that you feel and you turn it into a color, who made the color up? Did I tell you to make it orange or purple or pink polka dots with unicorns? No. You did that. So you pulled out the program that you're running. And every single nuance of that, every single distinction I ask for is a what? It's a software command. Right? And you changed one thing. You changed one line of code in the software based on its own code, based on its own computer language. And then what did you do? You amped it up and you put it back in. And the system said, oh, I can do that. Because 99.9% was the same. And besides, you created it, so you accept it. It's the difference between a cloned organ and a transplanted one. And heterohypnosis work, where I just give you, yeah, I can have it. But the chances of resistance go up dramatically, especially if you have control issues. But if you come up with it, what's there to resist? You understand? Human neurologies do not, cannot, more often than not, will not resist itself. That's why the somatic search engine is such a game changer. Pass the microphone to our gentleman here. Somebody's bogarting it over here.
Just a quick comment. This stuff really works. It works fast.
Yeah.
I had a couple that they put their son to get tutored, private tutored, and to get his grades up. And his grades went from C to D. They went down after spending over $10,000.
Mm-hmm.
So I tried some of those techniques, and within minutes, I saw the problem was fear.
Mm-hmm.
Got rid of the fear, and his grades went to B+.
Boom.
Fast.
Yeah.
Very fast.
Joe's a tutor, so he can speak to someone. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was actually working with somebody just the other day, and the thing to remember with this stuff is as you heal one thing, make sure there's not something deeper that you need to heal, because very often,
Oh yeah, you get the tip of the hypnotic iceberg.
yeah, they do. Do you always ask questions to see if there's fear about this not working and
Oh
not
yeah,
there?
yeah. Like we're heading towards that because we still haven't answered one of the original questions, was why does shit keep coming back? There's a technique for handling that, but we need to understand that more often than not, what's actually bringing the problem back is our attempts to avoid it, and that's a mindfuck. Pardon my French. That's a mindfuck for most people. People say, I'm just trying to avoid these people over and over, and they keep showing up. It's because the program you're running is actually magnetizing you towards those people. Whether you believe it as a metaphysical thing or it's just some weird quirk of the nervous system, but it's steering you towards the people who are going to provoke that problem so you can actually go inside and fix it at the source. Because those external events are never the problem. They're the product of a pattern you're running that's monopolizing your perceptions and guiding your behaviors. And the hack to it is point to where you feel it. You don't have to consciously understand why or how you got that shit. You don't need 20 years of therapy. If you can point to where you feel it, you can access it, and you can begin the process of change in a measurable way. And by definition, you don't have a problem.
Okay, what if you have a problem? But
What's the problem specifically?
I mean,
Let's walk through it, because I've heard this question before, so I want to know where she's coming from. Okay. So what if you don't have a feeling, but you have a problem? What specifically, give me an example of a problem where this might be.
okay, oh my God, there's so many problems, but let's say, fear of moving towards your
The
goal.
fear of moving towards your goal.
Yeah, like
And
you
there's no
don't,
place-
you don't do anything, right? But then they're like, okay, I have a fear, but where is this
Well,
fear?
there's a place in your body with a reason behind that fear is stored, and there's a feeling connected, a reason connected to that feeling. Where in your body does the feeling connected to that reason behind that fear live? First impression. Notice your mind went to a certain location automatically.
I think that's right.
Went into trance. I could go too many words. Well, I'll diagram this for you in just a minute. Are you trying to answer her question?
Yeah. Okay. Can you try? You try?
You can try.
Are you trying?
I prefer you succeeded, but okay.
If they can't, if they don't think they can, make it worse, and then they'll be able to point to it.
Oh yeah, that always works. No, he's right. But what happens is a lot of times, remember at the beginning of the training, I said there's two levels to feeling. There's the feelings you're conscious of and the feelings you're not. So one of the things we haven't gotten to yet, but it brings up a very important point. Shoot, I'll just show you on the screen. Is this useful, by the way? Okay, because I thrive on feedback. I'm insecure that way. Thank you. Okay. One of the things that most of these guys take for granted, which I haven't covered because I've been focusing on other things, is something called dialoguing with the unconscious. So the 6 dynamics of an unconscious response. A lot of you, this will be reviewed, but for people who are brand new, this is when you're going to start dialoguing with the part of you that controls all the stuff we're talking about. It's normal for us to try to relate to this part through the lens of the neocortex. But you have to remember that the neocortex is the only part of you that works in language. When you're dealing with the mammalian brain, the reptilian brain, the brainstem, and the spinal cord, you're dealing with sensation, and you're dealing with syntax and direction. In other words, all the qualitative things that we pay attention to rather than the words. So when you start to dialogue with the autonomic part of you, the part that controls your heartbeat, your long-term memories, it will always answer first, usually non-verbally, right? So if I say there's a place in your body where the feelings connected to the reason behind this fear of moving forward are stored, point to where you feel it, first impression. Now, the next thing that's going to happen is they're going to go right to this. Always feels like you made it up. Then they go right to this. You always have an urge to edit what just came up. Sound familiar? This is something you have to tell you as practitioners working on yourself. But those of you who are clinicians, if you're going to use our methodologies, even if you don't use our methodologies, but all you did was implement this, 90% of your resistance to your change work would go out the window. Okay? So the 6 dynamics. Unconscious mind always answers first, usually non-verbally. So a lot of times when you see me come up to bring somebody up for a demo or something like that, what's one of the first questions I ask them? Is it okay to change this? Part 2, is there any reason why you might want to keep it? Now that's a question I learned in kinesic interview and interrogation. And I'm watching their face. Because what answers first? The unconscious mind, usually non-verbally. So if I see any form of hesitation or indecision in their non-verbals, when they verbally answer me and I hear any form of incongruity or uncertainty, I'm going to go right to the magic frame technique. I'm going to skip whatever technique I intended to do, if it wasn't magic frame already, but I'm going to go right to the magic frame because I need to resolve the reason they have for keeping it. Okay? So a lot of times when people say, I don't have a feeling, they're working from their neocortex. So you have to jump to the limbic system and into the brainstem through their imagination. And you do that, but pretend if there were a place in your body where that feeling was stored, a place you could touch, first impression, where would you point? There you go. And there it is. Does it matter if that's actually where it is? No. Because the moment your unconscious mind gives you that body location, they've given you the portal, the USB plug. And now any question you ask, you're going to be able to access all of that information. and begin to work with it. Okay? So the unconscious mind always answers first. It always answers honestly. Now let me be very clear. I did not say factually. Because when we're dealing with the unconscious mind, we're dealing with trauma, we're dealing with memory, we are dealing with perception. So your unconscious mind won't lie. It will give you what it perceives to be that truth. Okay? This is one of the reasons why you can't really use a lot of hypnosis in forensics. Because people, they can have really good recall, but the subjectivity and the confabulation really contaminates the information. That's why you can use it for investigative purposes, but you can't enter it in court. Right? Always feels like you're making it up. This is a big one. Because a lot of times you'll get people say, go back to the very first scene, situation, or event that is the source, the beginning, the root cause of XYZ. And they think they're coming in for something that happened in their 20s. All of a sudden, they're 3 years old watching their mom and dad argue. And at first they go, that can't be right. I came here to lose weight. What does that have to do with my mom and dad arguing? Because that's where it started. Your unconscious mind doesn't group things by linear time. It groups things by what they have in common. And there's a high probability that if you have a weight problem that goes back to your parents arguing, there's some security issues, food is love, all kinds of other things that went into that body armor. But the part of you that controls all of your long-term memories is also the part that makes things up. It's the part that confabulates and combines memories. You guys all know that your memories aren't real, right? We don't have, unless you're one of those people with a weird neurological glitch where you have something called a photographic memory, most of our memories change as we recall them. That's the science. You don't record memories, you reconstruct them. And every time you reconstruct them, they change. Which is great. Because the only thing that's holding you back is a memory that's fucked up anyway. Think about all the problems you have about memories you've stored. And the rules connected to those memories. Think about it. If you didn't have the memory, you wouldn't have the problem. But here's the thing. I'm getting on my soapbox again. Right? The memories you're running around with aren't even accurate. They're not even true representations of what actually happened. And every time you recall them, they change again. So here's the question. If the memories that are keeping you stuck aren't even accurate, and the only one that's causing any pain to is you, and you have charge of the editing deck and permission to make that change, why not change it to something that makes your life better? We can do that, yeah. Once you realize your memories are not you, which is one of the big delusions that human beings operate under. We believe our memories are real, first of all, that they are in fact the thing that happened to us. Ooh, there's my thought. And that our memories are us. That's like saying your DVD collection owns the sum total of your entertainment experience. No. They're just imperfect recordings of something that happened to you once. And you've been reliving that memory ever since. When we do soul retrieval, when we do regress to cause, when we do holographic or holonomic re-imprinting, we go back into that container to the event, and we find that fragment of your consciousness that's stuck in that little parallel universe on an endless loop, because that part of you doesn't know that shit's over. We go back and we rescue that part of you. We bring it out of that world and back to the rest of you. And you heal. The things that trigger you are the recordings you haven't found yet, are the parts of yourself you haven't rescued. You can start the process by spinning, framing, and color breathing, and that's kind of where we're going. So, just to put a cherry on this, it's never loud, it's almost never linear. So like I said before, you say go back to the first scene, situation, or event that is the source, the beginning, the root cause. They think they're going back to 25 when they went through their divorce, or when they discovered Haagen-Dazs or whatever the hell it was, all of a sudden they're 5 years old and they're in their room alone. It's dark and they're terrified. And that's all that's happening. And that a good chunk of the time is exactly where our shit started. It wasn't some big, grandiose, active shooter, child molester. Well, there's a lot of that, don't get me wrong. But a lot of times, when you get that child back to the initial problem, they're just in a room at night by themselves and nothing is happening. But it's not about what was actually happening. It's about what the child perceived was happening. So we go back and we give that child exactly what it needed to be okay. Because there's only two entities in the universe that can do that. That's God and you. Now, we all live here in sunny California, and aside from its decidedly woke nature, we have really nice weather, right? A lot of golf courses. God plays a lot of golf. Doesn't always take my calls. But you're unconscious. They're always home. And they know where everything is stored and where we need to go to fix it. And if we just ask it the right way, we just ask it the right way. We ask it the right way. It'll take us exactly where we need to go so we can do what we need to do with the part of us we need to do it with. If you can point to where you feel it, you can change it. So let's change some shit. I want you to think of something on a scale of 1 to 10. I would prefer 1, 2, or 3. I know some of you are not going to do that. You're going to go right after Godzilla, and that's okay. Think of something on a scale of 1 to 10 that you want to change. I want you to close your eyes. And as I walk you through this process, I'm going to start with a simple question. Is it okay to change this? Is there any reason why you might want to keep it? First impression. Excellent. I'd like you to notice that there's a place in your body where the feeling connected to that thing you want to change is stored. Point to it. First impression. That's right. There you go. And it might be more than one place. Point to both of them and decide which one you want to hit first. That's right. Realize, tell your unconscious mind if there's more than one spot, we'll get that one next. If there were a picture floating in the space around you that represented that experience, picture you could reach out and touch, where would you reach out and touch it? First impression. Take the other hand, reach out, touch it. Now, take both of your hands. Let's make sure we've got the right one. Trace the outline with both of your hands so you know how big it is. Use both hands. Trace the outline. Grab the edges of it. Now just start to make it bigger. Notice what happens to the feeling. Does it get stronger or weaker? That's right. Now bring it back to its original size. Make it a little smaller. Notice, does the feeling get stronger or weaker? Now bring it back to its original size. Now slowly pull it closer to your body. Notice what happens. Does the feeling get stronger or weaker? Whatever it does is perfectly okay. Now put it back to its original location. Now what I want you to do is I want you to use your imagination. Put a massive, big, thick, black frame around that thing. Now, most of you are too young to remember when televisions had real dials and knobs and switches instead of touch screens and remote controls. But I want you to feel on the base of that frame. You're going to notice some dials and knobs and switches like on an old-style television. I want you to find the knob that controls the brightness or the contrast. Physically turn that knob all the way to the right until the image whites out completely. Notice how that makes you feel. Turn the knob all the way to the left until the image blacks out completely. Notice how that makes you feel. Decide for yourself which one you like better. Now, if there's a different color, that would make it even better for you. Find the knob that controls the color and turn it until it's the color you want that you like best. When you've done that, just nod your head to let me know. And I want you to take the index finger of your dominant hand and across that colored out, whited out, blacked out screen, in glowing golden letters, I want you to write all the lessons, positive or negative, that this experience had to teach you. So you can keep all the lessons and let everything else go. Now, I'm never going to ask you what you're writing. You have complete privacy. The only person who will ever know any of this is you. Some people know exactly what those lessons were and they blast them out on the screen. Some people have no conscious idea what those lessons might be. But the part of you that created that picture, the part of you that created that feeling, the part of you that controls that finger knows exactly what those lessons are, what needs to be kept so that everything else can be let go. Give that part permission to start writing across that colored out screen. Now, some people will draw squiggles. Some people will draw pictures. Every now and then you get a rage monkey. They write fuck you across the screen. Every now and then you get people write with both hands simultaneously. They're writing Chinese or Hebrew at the same time. The screen will scroll like a tablet will scroll. So you have an infinite writing space. Take all the time that you need to write all the lessons on that screen so you can keep all those lessons and let everything else go. If feelings and emotions come up, write them on the screen too. Put them on the screen. As it comes up, it comes out. As you feel it, you reveal it. As you reveal it, you heal it. Solved, dissolved, and resolved from the body. Solved, dissolved, and resolved from the mind for all the right reasons. Just keep going. When you know it's done, you just nod your head to let me know, and we'll continue. Perfect. You guys are doing great. If you're yawning, you're changing. It's all good. You may notice your body doing all kinds of weird shit. Some people laugh, some people yawn, some people cry, some people twitch. Some people feel waves of emotion coming up. Some people get hot all over. It's all good. Anything your body does is you changing. When you're done, reach up, shrink that frame down to the size of a postage stamp or even smaller. Notice how the feelings in your body shift and change. Your other than conscious mind begins the process of moving that frame up over the top of your head, all the way back beyond the horizon, so it disappears below the horizon completely. And you all know the sound a hammer makes when you're banging on a nail. Feel it nailed back there for all eternity, impossible to come back. When you know it's nailed back there for all eternity, impossible to come back, test it. Try to bring the old feeling back. Try to turn the new feelings off. And notice what happens instead. Everybody processes at different speeds. Take all the time you need to let your neurology finish the process of letting go. When you're done, allow your eyes to open. Notice how different you feel. Real relax, real good. I saw some heavy-duty processing. There's still some people processing. All right, it's all good. Let's take a 5-minute drink break while you guys kind of get back in your bodies a little bit, and we'll come back and we'll debrief. Lots of Girl Scout cookies, candy, water. Again, remember, we also have a weight loss program, so the candy's free. Eat as much as you want. They're all deeply, my girls, Sophie is 10, Cassia's 14. Yep. And Tracy is, I think, 32 or 33. Okay. How you doing, brother? Good. Good to see you again. Huh? Are you gonna get back in? Uh-huh. Therapist can say, "Wow, you're making great strides." I'm like, "Yeah, because I'm sitting there." You just love to hear that. Yeah, I'm seeing somebody else. They're giving me the results that you're so happy with. It's all good. I'll tell Don you said hi.
Yeah, good. Got a plate put in by next week because bone shield is I'm at about 75%, but I can't get past that. The strengthening.
Strength bars?
Yeah, it's irritating. Something that plate is.
Okay. But they're going to take the plate out and then you have more rehab, I assume?
Yeah, and now the joint.
Okay. We can clear out some of the emotional gunk that's in there. So yeah. One of the things I learned when I started seeing clients, 80% of my work was intractable pain. That's actually when I got out of acupuncture school, I didn't actually start doing acupuncture. I started doing hypnotherapy. It was just one of those things that evolved. But everything I did was off medical referrals from Dawn. Because she got really good figuring out which was psycho-emotional versus what was mechanical. So she just started referring all of her intractable pain clients to me, and that's where we got started. And even when there's biomechanical damage, a huge percentage of the physical pain is not biomechanical. It's the emotions around the injury. And again, I knew this from my hypnosis training, but I learned it even from a different perspective in my medical Qigong training, is that a lot of times the pain that we've got isn't from you, it's from the surgeon.
It's still good. Doctor says, you look good. It's like, oh man, I'm not here with a good feel right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, because what happens a lot of times is, like in China, if you know you're going to go in for surgery, they will bring all kinds of gifts to the surgeon before the surgery, because they want the surgeon to be in as happy a mood as possible, because they know that the mood that the surgeon is in will pass through the scalpel and into their tissues. So that's a tradition in China, but it's based on energetics. Yeah. Well, we know from clinical hexing and from hypnosis that when the patient is on the table and they're deeply anesthetized, they hear what's going on. They're not conscious of it, but it's going in. They can't shut that off. So we call it clinical hexing.
There's two halves. First half, quarterback is great. But he's too afraid to take it out. And so it's like, you gotta find the master to take it out. It's too complicated.
Mm-hmm.
And just really finish it.
Bring in lots of gifts before the surgery. All right. How'd you guys do with this? Pretty good? Yeah. This magic frame technique is actually a variation of a technique called a resource organizer I learned many, many years ago. But the first time I learned it, like I have this, you ever hear the expression where there's smoke, there's fire? Right? The first time I learned it, my Snyder sense started tingling. It told me that there was deeper level to this technique, or a deeper significance to this technique than in the context in which I was being taught it. And so I've taken it and used it for just about anything, really. But one of the reasons, this goes back to the very first question that was at the top of our list, patterns that keep coming back. One of the reasons that patterns keep coming back, aside from us trying to avoid them, is that when your unconscious mind, when you go through an experience multiple times, or either multiple times, or one that is significant enough that it triggers the trauma recovery mechanism, it will, so think of it, primary trauma or basic trauma is massive event, trauma mechanism gets activated, now you have an issue. Or lots of little traumas happen, it reaches a critical mass, it flips the trauma switch on, and now you have an issue. So it's the difference between complex and primary. But regardless of how you get there, at some point, the unconscious mind says, I need to protect so-and-so from this ever happening again. And so one of the things that happens is the lessons that to keep you safe are in that container. Now, when you see that nice little diagram that I showed you, it's very pretty and it's static, but it's more like vibrational soup. Anybody ever make soup? Anybody ever try to unmake soup? It's harder than making the soup, right? So a lot of times what happens is your unconscious mind's primary job is to protect you and to keep you safe. And so if it sees you getting rid of a problem and it doesn't trust you, because it's seen you make the same mistake 27 times, it will say no. Every time, if you let this go, you'll forget this happened and shit'll happen to you again. So no, you're keeping it all. Right? Now, clinically or experientially, how do you diagnose that? You go to do an intervention on a problem, it goes away, and then it comes back. Because what's happened is in that moment, the unconscious mind says, okay, we let that go, but no, he hasn't learned the lesson, she hasn't learned the lesson, we got to bring that back. Boom. And it flips a switch and it comes back. The other way that you start to diagnose it, and I hate to use that word, but if you have something that's like on a scale of 0 to 10, it's like an 8 or 9 or 10, and then you do an intervention and it drops, and you do it again and it drops until you finally get to like a 1 or 2, and it just doesn't get any better after that. What you're dealing again is, you can think of it as secondary gain or a safety lesson. In other words, the unconscious mind has made a decision that letting this go is dangerous. And so it will fight you to let the rest go until you can prove to it that that information to stay safe has been retained. And that's exactly the intervention you just did. You pointed to where you felt that you reached out and you touched it. And then you began the process of changing how your body expresses that feeling. And then you preserved the lesson, which allowed you to vent the emotional charges connected to the experience while writing the lessons. Then you shrank it and you moved it behind you. What happened when you moved it behind you? It dissipated. And the further back it went, right? 99% of humans will experience that without me having to tell them, right? Yes. Microphone. You're bogarting again, dude. Let's give one to Sia and one to... Oh, you want them to share? Okay. All right. I see how it is. Yes.
But I don't want to share.
Exactly what
Well, that's tough. My rodeo.
So with this process, I've noticed that when a couple of things happen when I do the reframing,
Mm-hmm.
after I toss it, I get into this overwhelming emotions and stuff.
Mhm.
Does that mean that there's more to cover and I need to go
You're
into...
not done venting, and there's usually a daisy chain of stuff.
Should I just allow
Yes.
whatever?
When you start emoting, that's the best thing you can do. When the emotions come up, let them come up and out. Don't try to lock them down. Don't try to repress them. Don't try to manage them. Let them come out. That's what makes you sick.
What happens if they don't? Does it come back, or does it stay, or does it become something completely
If you don't vent the emotion, you're leaving that poison inside of you. Is that what you want? Because it's been making your life peachy keen up to that point, hasn't it?
There's been adventures, haven't you?
Oh, I'm sure. My point is that when you start these processes, how many people noticed that you started to write, emotions started coming up? Right? That's supposed to happen. Right? Some of you may just notice that you had no idea what you were writing, but the moment you moved it behind you, you just felt better. It's not necessary for you to consciously know what that shit is. Because the party that created the problem, it knows everything. You just have to give it permission to express itself. Remember I told you at the beginning of the meeting that there were certain interventions that were 100% effective when the person had absolutely no clue what they were getting rid of? That's all modulated by your spinal cord and your brainstem. Okay? And it can be anything from, stubbing your toe as a kid to a gunshot wound to whatever. 99% of the time, the person has no idea what they're getting rid of. But they feel like $1 million afterwards. Right? And it's called neurogenic tremoring. Have you ever seen babies shake? You ask any cop who's been to a car accident where a baby was involved and the baby survived, they look at the backseat baby doing this. Right? Maybe they're shaking. Right? That's a normal mammalian response designed to vent traumatic experience. Between the ages of 0 and 3, that's normal. At about somewhere between 3 and 5, the ego takes over and we start to lock it down. If you look at children, babies especially, when they're shocked, when they're in trauma, they do this. Their hands are wide open, they're out to the side, because the energy is coming out of the pericardium, out the palms. And then about somewhere between 3 and 5, they start doing this. And they're locking that shit back in their bodies. we socialize them into it. We socialize them into it. Some of the most powerful trauma release mechanisms, Mother Nature built into you, but you got your button on the pause button. And you don't know how to let it go. Well, you're tapping with this particular exercise, you're tapping into the same set of mechanisms. But you've got to let go. You've got to just trust that process. 99 times, when I'm doing this shit, like at night, like I feel something out of it, my finger just starts going, I have no idea what I'm writing. I have no idea what I'm writing about. And I'll shrink it and I'll move it behind me and I'll nail it back and all of a sudden my shit goes away. And I feel better. Right? We don't need to know. Now, what you'll discover when you become more absorbed in that process, and the best part is you don't got to believe it. You just got to do it. What you'll discover, I forget what it was you going to discover. It's around here somewhere. Make it big, yeah. My own words coming back to haunt me. There was a time we were sitting around the table, and he was like, oh, it escaped me. And I saw his eyes look that way, and I said, wait a minute. And I pulled it right there. Oh, there it is. You can, when you have levels, a deep level of rapport with another nervous system, you can do that. You can reach into somebody's own field to pull out their pictures and move them. It's insane, but it's real, right? But it's all about the connection that you get. We have full trainings for this, right? But I'm sure what I was going to say will come back to me in a moment. But this magic frame concept is the one that I don't think it's the most powerful in terms of like when you spin something away, that's like nuclear, right? And we haven't gotten to the spinning to get rid of it yet. But the most important thing about the magic frame is that it's going to give you the ability to use the other techniques better. Because if you go to spin something and you don't have the nervous system's permission to let it go, it's coming back. It's coming back, right? Either it's going to go all the way away, it's going to go from like 10 to 0, and then at some point it'll start to creep back, or it'll go from whatever number it is to like a 1 or 2, and it'll just stop there, right? That's a safe. It's textbook safety, right? There's a reason that your neurology has for holding on to that issue, and you need to prove to the nervous system that you've learned that lesson and vent the emotion connected to it, because emotion is like glue. The more emotion that's locked in your system, the less plastic your system becomes. How many of you have ever seen firemen working with a fire hose? Okay? Can one person handle a fire hose? Why not? Pressure. You ever try to bend a fire hose that's got water flowing through it? It doesn't work. Why? Too much pressure. You ever seen an overinflated tire? They're the ones that pop fastest, right? Right? Why? Too much pressure. When there's too much emotion in the system fights change. Right with you, Tim. So you've got to vent that energy. And what you'll notice, that's what I was going to say, when you finally get the emotion cleared, and you've done an actual intervention that's leading to resolution, you will have a spontaneous epiphany about that experience. You'll have a spontaneous reframe. It's like, oh, that's what I've been responding to all this time. Because that's what we would have been headed for anyway if the energy hadn't gotten stuck. So there's always information behind the emotion. But the emotion clogs the system and doesn't let us finish processing. So we're stuck on an endless loop. But the reason for the magic frame is if we've attached safety lessons to that experience, our system will fight us. Okay? Now the best part is that at the level you're working at, it doesn't matter if it's a physical pain, emotional pain, whether it actually happened or you just think it happened. It's all data as far as the system is concerned. So Sia and then Tim. Do you have a question? You're good? Okay, Tim.
another one that
No.
I can?
Get away. You are so kind and compassionate, sucker. Yeah.
I don't like him.
You know what?
I said, I don't like him.
You know, like, I noticed that.
So the other one is, so I have that reaction, but there's another reaction, is that I go numb. Is that a normal thing to happen as well?
Yes.
And do I just let it happen?
Yes.
until-
Because numbness is a feeling.
Mm.
Numbness is a feeling. You say, I'm numb. Point to where you feel the numbness. It's a feeling. When you're doing regression, you go back to the very first scene, situation, or event that is the source, the beginning, the root cause. They go, it's black. Okay. I'm going to count from 1 to 5. That blackness is going to get even blacker. You just amplify the blackness and boom. Back to the very first scene, situation, event that is the source, the beginning, the root cause of that blackness, and you just took that barrier and now you can fix it. Right? Anything you encounter is just a sign you're on the right track. Yeah.
Can you repeat that again? So you said if you see a certain color,
A lot of times you'll start to regress people, especially if they know you're going to do regression, and say, go back to the very first scene, situation, or event that is the source, the beginning, the root cause. 5, there's the feeling. Inside your house, is it black? There's nothing. You want to people, there's nothing. The daytime or nighttime, there's nothing. Okay. I want you to focus on the nothing. As I count from 1 to 5, that nothingness is going to get stronger. So they get stronger and stronger and stronger. 1, feel that nothingness intensifying, growing stronger than it's ever been. 2, bigger, better, stronger, like a gate to the past, throwing you back in time to the very first scene, situation, thing. 3, there's that nothingness getting even stronger. 4, on the next count, back to the very first scene, situation, or event that is the source, the beginning, the root cause, and then boom, 5, there's the feeling, inside or outside. Boom, and they're right there. Okay, that's the old school way to do it. There's kinder, gentler ways. But sometimes people put shells around their stuff, and you need the hypnotic equivalent of bazookas and dynamite to break that shell. Right? Now, when we do holonomic regression, we just step them through it. Right? But that's a different class for a different day. Like, there's all kinds of, this is like more advanced than most people do, but this is still like, I don't want to say kindergarten, but but this is your entry point, because once you understand the dynamics of your own system, you can make up your own techniques. And because you make them up, you don't resist them. Right? So, spinning, we talked about, take it out, spin it, right, for something we want. If it's something we want to get rid of, you do the exact same process, but instead of finding direction that gives you what you want instead, well, actually that would work too. If something, pain you want to get rid of, point to where you feel it, notice there's a color, scale of 0 to 10, rate the intensity of the feeling. When you say rate of feeling, notice the color connect to it, take it out, hold it in your hands. Notice the direction, if the color change or stay the same. Find the direction that makes it feel better. Now spin it like a wheel and double the spin. Double the speed, double the force, double the magnitude. Keep doubling it over and over and over again until it takes on a life of its own. Until it's impossible for it to go back the way it was. When you know you've got that, slam it back into that spot. Now, it's always cool if other people guide you through this and when you're doing it yourself. But I've done this, I know lots of people who've used this on themselves many, many times. The technique almost never changes. But the questions you use do, depending on the situation. Because you need to know where to aim the tool. And that comes from the questions you ask. Does that make sense, Lily? Okay. We had some questions from our Zoomers.
Can I have a quick question? So when going back to Magic Frame, and I've noticed this recently, it's not been a big problem, but I've noticed what I've been doing when I send the back, when I shrink it down, send it back, I sometimes have that residual feeling where it hasn't completely let go of.
Mm-hmm.
What do I do with that?
Okay, so the first thing you want to check in with is this residual that's just melting slower? Is it a separate issue? Because what happens a lot of times when you start doing this, what I'm stepping you guys through with sidebars into, I have all these cool pictures, I might as well use them. What I'm stepping you guys through is something called the transformational triad. So we have magic frame, energy spinning, color breathing. Magic frame is at the apex because whenever you're going to work with any of these techniques, you always want to make sure that the system's willing to get rid of it. That should be SOP. So we gave you magic frame so you would be able to preserve whatever safety lessons the system has. Then we usually go into spinning. So because what happens a lot of times if you frame it, I won't say 9 times out of 10, but 7, 8 times out of 10, that's all you need to do. It's a one and done. And whatever's residual, now you can spin the rest of it. And if there's any left after that, you can either go to color breathing or you can go back to magic frame. All right? And when you start playing with color breathing, remember that everything that you're experiencing in your bodies is a metaphor. So when I say, think of something you want to change, point to where you feel it. Go ahead and do that. Think of something you want to change, point to where you feel it. Excellent. Now, look at it with your inner eyes. Notice there's a color connected to that feeling. What's the color? First impression. Now, even if you didn't look, a color popped into your head. Either does a word or is an actual color. Here's the thing I need you to understand. It's not a feeling, and it's not a color. It's a vibration. Vibrational signal. It's a vibrational field that your system is interpreting as a sensation or color. Feeling or a color. All of your sensations are interpretations. Now that's cool. Because if they're just interpretations, that means you can change it. That means you can change it. So when we color breathe, there's a feeling you want to change, feeling that has everything to do with why you're here today. Close your eyes, point to where you feel it. Notice the color connected to that. Now, because your autonomic nervous system created that, if that same system could send you a frequency, a vibration, a feeling, a color, that would completely dissolve that other color and give you exactly what you need and want and desire instead, for all the right reasons, what color or colors might it send you? First impression. Whatever that color is, breathe that new color or colors through the old color and notice what happens to the old color and the feelings connected to it. Now, some people will notice it dissolving fast. Some people will notice it dissolving slow. Just keep breathing that new color through that space in an infinite, ever-expanding supply. And just notice how the feelings in your body shift and change as that new color does its work the way it was intended. When you're done, look up here. What'd you notice? That's your first time doing this, isn't it? Oh, maybe not. You're going like, really? What'd you experience? A lightness, okay? Anybody want to share? Not so much? You brought it. Okay, let me just, I keep putting the Zoomers off and I apologize. That's color breathing. That's what I do with 5-year-olds.
I keep putting the Zoomers off and I apologize.
Work with children.
That's color breathing.
Sorry, James, I didn't bruise half the time. It's really cool. That's level 1 of like 7 levels of intervention. If you follow this to its ultimate conclusion, you can batch from 20, 30, 40 traumatic memories at one shot. And even if they're not classically hypnotizable, you can still get deep level regression results without deep level regression. Right? It's really cool. All right, let's go to our Zoomers.
All right, so Zoom questions. All right, going back from the beginning, one person was asking about who are you? We'll see if we get to that or not, but that came up. Next question, going back to the unconscious mind driving the bus, the question was, so can we get ourselves to the point where we consciously drive the subconscious?
Yes,
Great.
but not 100%. Because if you had to manage all that stuff, you would die. No, seriously, there's too much information there for you to Now, can you influence, control, and command it? Yes. But that's as far as it goes. You can command it, but you can't do it. You got to let the autonomic part do its job, right? And for those of you the level of training I'm talking about. We have a 2-day coaching process where within 2 days we give you complete control over your heartbeat, your blood pressure, your body temperature, like on demand, whatever you want. It's not a short process, but the final 2 days, it's just you and me for 2 solid days, just installing some crazy stuff. But that's taking the programming that we would normally install in your limbic system and your palliative cortex and moving it into your spinal cord. Some crazy stuff, and it's not cheap. So don't ask me. No, I literally had to sign like 4 NDAs to get access to the information. Yes. There's a vetting process to see if you're a candidate for it. Then there's a 60-day build-up phase where we give you specific things to listen to, specific tasks you have to perform. And then at the end of 60 days, if you kept up with the priming phase that we've asked you to do, then we'll bring you in for 2 days of intense installation. Yeah.
What is the break?
I call it the super soldier serum. It's whatever. Think of it like this. Imagine if you could be brainwashed into exactly what you wanted to be brainwashed into. With complete control, autonomy, authority. That's pretty much what it is. I call it the super soldier serum. Because he was teaching me, which I'm not sure how much I can say and how much I can't. But one of his clients was a professional fighter, and they literally installed like a Terminator in him, and he was taking full shots to the face. His heartbeat and his respiration never went beyond 14 during like the 7 or 8 rounds that he was boxing. Like that's the level of control we're talking about. And what I'm working on is I'm working on integrating that technology in with the Qigong training and the mysticism training, because I figured out that both sides are both trying to get you back into your spinal cord. And if you can get yourself back into your spinal cord, you control everything. That's a lot. Don't worry about it. But this is where my head is at these days. But the whole point is if you can point to where you feel it, you can start changing shit. You don't need that level of intervention, but it does exist. Yes, I'm so sorry, guys.
The next question, did you say earlier to use indifference for state control or something to manage state?
Yeah, when you're going to control your state. So one of the things you learn when you come to Killer Influence or CPI-1 or NLP Ultra, which is coming up in May, is you learn this thing. We'll talk about let me see if I have it really quick.
You want the dates?
No, I want the diagram, because they don't need to see that CPI model. That's not helpful. You know what? I'll just draw it. So you have what we call the Universal Persuasion Protocol, the UPP, right? It starts with controlling your state, getting rapport, using whatever language skills you have, and then you manage the state of the subject or subjects and its state. You jump into their process. And then you bond to their emotions. And when you use that formula, you can pretty much get anyone to do anything you want, anytime, anywhere, under any circumstance. Right? When you get really good at it, you only need to do these 3. And your closing rate, your sales rate, your conversion rates will jump by leaps and bounds. Your compliance will go up, off the charts. Right? How many people have been to Killer Influence or CPI? Just raise your hands. If you want to know about it, talk to those people. But when we teach you about controlling your state, there's this thing you learn called physiological state control and volitional or cognitive state control. Cognitive state control is what you do with your will and intention to change and manage your emotional states. So one of the ways that we start to train you with that is we actually borrowed some drills from method acting and things of that nature. So what you do is a long drawn out way to give a frame to what I'm about to say. You take two emotions that are polar opposites of each other. You have a 0 point. You practice intentionally going into the positive state as far and as deeply as you can, for as long as you can. And then you intentionally bring yourself back. You break the state. And then you go as far into the negative state as you can, for as long as you can. And then intentionally bring yourself back to a neutral, slightly positive state and exit. That's a polarity drill. So when you're doing, in your manuals, there will be a whole list of polar states that you can play with. But the default, if you have a state that you want to practice and you don't know what the opposite of it is, you just use indifference. Because indifference can be the opposite of anything, right? And it's actually a good state to really develop because it makes you non-reactive, which is really, really useful in very volatile, stressful situations where people can trigger you. That indifference allows you to pause and hesitate so you can inject change into the interaction without responding from your reptile brain. So it's actually a really good state to cultivate, yeah.
Second part to that question, will using indifference for state control cause emotions that would want to be felt, eventually blocked by the habit?
Say that again?
Will indifference lead to the effect of stuffing and blocking things down?
Not if you're not using it to stuff and block things.
So to clarify then, if you're using indifference just to navigate through, it won't create a propensity towards stuffing and blocking.
Yeah, well, if something gets through your indifference that triggers you, then you need to go back and clean that up later. But if something's coming up within and you summon up a state of indifference to put the genie back in the bottle, that's going to come back to haunt you. Because that's dissociation. Dissociation never leads to resolution, it leads to stagnation.
So when do you know when it's appropriate to do that versus self-destructive?
You have to reconnoiter the situation and decide what states are going to be useful first. Most first responders are going to have some level of dissociation because they're going to be, and they're always going to have that on tap because they're going into very dangerous, highly fluid, deeply traumatic situations, right? But they know that going in. The problem is they never turn it off. And so they never vent that stuff, and they've accumulated all this toxin from all these emotional traumas and issues, and that's what festers, which goes back to what Maria was talking about. When you pull the cork out of something, and those emotions come out, the worst thing you can do is try to stuff them back in. If you're vomiting that stuff out, sometimes literally or metaphorically, it's because your body wants to get rid of it. It's like having food poisoning and refusing to vomit. That's literally what it's like, right? And every time you think about stuffing an emotion that you know needs to go somewhere, I want you to think about what I just said, right? Because again, I have to motivate. I want to motivate you towards. No one ever wound up in my chair because of things they were expressing. No one ever, when I work with tumors or things, no one ever had a tumor because of things they were expressing. Okay? So I'm going to encourage you, when you find those pockets of emotion, when you find those memories and those stories that are locked in your tissues, find a safe place and vent that shit. And then journal on it. Right? Just to get the epiphany, the lesson. Right? I'm not a big fan of journalism, but it keeps coming up in every behavioral application I study. And I understand why. I just don't like it. Yes.
The next question was about progressive desensitization and like whether or not that's really a useful approach to things.
Yes.
So what's the limitations to its usefulness versus...
What's the limitations to its usefulness? If all you're doing is venting but you're not resolving, then you're just delaying the inevitable. Progressive desensitization is when we find that pocket of emotion or that traumatic experience, there's going to be a charge, an emotional charge connected to that experience. The thing we have to do to get, remember I said what happens when you've got too much emotion, you have an overinflated tire, an overinflated fire hose, you can't work with it. So you have to vent it. Progressive desensitization is a way to vent that emotional charge so you can get to the actual problem and reprocess the experience. But if all you ever do is vent, but you never go in and fix the reason the charge is building up in the first place, like you got a boat with a hole in it, you bail it out really fast, but you don't fix the hole, and so it fills up again. And by the way, this is why a lot of times stuff comes back. And why sometimes the psychologists say that venting doesn't help. Yeah, because they're not resolving anything. They're just venting. Venting will give you a temporary cessation of symptomology, but it won't fix the problem. So you've got to vent, and then you've got to resolve, and then you've got to process those experiences out. What else? These people need a break.
Indeed. So,
I talked a lot tonight. Jesus.
what do you think we get from?
Final.
All right. We have, what can I do with releasing? What can I do with releasing and even just being aware of the shit I'm storing / releasing is traumatic in of its own, so it feels safer to keep it inside. But obviously it makes me sick and dissociating even more.
Which is more important, being sick or having a moment of pain versus a lifetime of suffering?
So, yeah, and I think the other piece of that is like how to approach it if it's so intensely traumatic to face it.
Then don't do it alone. See, I love you all. I do, even though I don't know half of you. But you're kind of being a little stupid. And here's what I mean. Y'all want to fix your own shit, right? But your nervous system is actually kind of screwing with you. Because your nervous system is designed to draw your attention towards the most heinous, life-stopping, monstrous stuff, right? So, you ever seen the movie Bambi versus Godzilla? If not, it's somewhere on YouTube. Go watch it. It doesn't end well for Bambi, ever. How many of you ever played a video game? Like an online role-playing game or something like that, right? Right. So you've all created this brand new, spanking new character, right? You log into your virtual world, and you're following the rules. So you read your little map. It says the newbie areas for level 1 through 5 are right here. So you go and you play in your level 1 through 5. But every now and then you get someone who just doesn't know their ass from a hole in the ground, and they start a brand new character, and they wander into a level 20 killing field. Does it usually end well for the level 1 character? Exactly. I'm using gaming metaphors. For those of you who ever play Dungeons & Dragons, you know what I'm talking about, right? You roll up a level 1 character, all of a sudden the dungeon master throws a level 15 hard lich at you or some shit, right? Okay? It doesn't end well for the level 1. That's exactly what happens every time you have a trauma that you want to fix and you go buy a book to fix it. Or you watch a video on YouTube, right? You've got a level 1 solution against a level 20 problem. And you wonder why you have trouble. The only time that actually works well is when somebody else is deploying the technique. If you are going to train to fix your own stuff, you have to flip the script. How do we do that, David? Well, I'm glad you asked. Because this is actually where we were going. But before I go into that, open loop, I want to thank you all for coming out and showing the enthusiasm that you did tonight. And so I don't see as many clients as I used to. I've handed those off to my highly trained associates like Moss and Heather and Bernie and stuff like that. So what I would like to do for all of you who came out tonight and who've enjoyed the show, so to speak, I'd like to offer you all a free gift. I'd like to give each of you a 30-minute consultation with Moss or myself, depending on what level of issue we're dealing with. And for that 30 minutes, you can do whatever you want. We offer all our prospective clients a free 30-minute consultation to determine if your case is a fit for our methods. After you pass our screenings and our evaluations, we'll discuss strategies and tactics for helping you get your situations resolved in the shortest amount of time possible. If we can help you, we'll tell you. If we can't help you, we'll tell you that too, and we'll point you in the direction of where we think you'll get the biggest bang for your buck and the help that you need. Now, that 30 minutes is yours to do with whatever. If you want to come in and go through our screening process and find out if working with us, either as an organization or one-on-one individually, is for you, great. If all you want to do is get on a Zoom call with one of us for 30 minutes, pick our brains, it's your 30 minutes, do what you want. Right? If you're a practitioner and you want help with a case, well, we can do that. If you want help with the stuff you're dealing with, we have processes for that. But it's my gift to you. All you got to do before you go home tonight is get a CMOS. And how many slots do we have open for that? 9? Oh, shit, I thought we had 12. All right. We have 9 slots available. So if you're interested in doing something like that, CMOS before we go home. Now let's talk about something I love called bucket. Yes, Lily. Oh, she's very sensitive to EMF. So I'll repeat her question.
I think you have process that you're like 2 roads that both lead to Rome.
Mm-hmm.
So, what's the main difference for Advantage road?
Well, I'm arguably biased. Okay, but I will say this, and I will happily go up against any other practitioner who wants to prove me wrong. But spinning beats tapping 10 out of 10 times. Yeah. And I say that with no ego because I've tested it. You know, it's faster, it's more direct, and the change happens longest. The change is more permanent. It's just more efficient to do it that way. And we've discovered recently that you can actually spin for other things. I literally had a lady spin her things for her horse, and it worked. Yeah, that was just in the last 2-3 weeks. She asked, can you do proxy spinning and spin this for other dogs? I don't know, I never tried. Test it and tell me what happens. 5 days later, I did one for my horse, and it worked. Big Bill Bankston, yeah. Well, no, and it's cycling. Yeah, it's a form of spinning, you can think of it that way for sure. But, honestly, this stuff, I've been doing this almost 20 years now, Lily, and I'll tell you, I still step back from this sometimes and I go, that shouldn't fucking work. But it doesn't matter what I believe, right? Paleocortex is another way of saying the reptile brain. Right? If you have the book Red Gold, they refer to that part as the paleocortex. Yeah. It just sounds more scientific than the lizard. Right? You gotta love your lizard, right? So anyway, so let's talk about bucket listing. Now, one of the things I want you to do, I want to step you through this. Bucket listing is a way of beginning the process of venting and going meta to our emotional issues. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to get a piece of paper and you're going to list everything you want to change, and you're going to assign a number value to it. So let me see if I have a sample of what this looks like. Okay, this is it right here. Okay, so there's 2 ways that you can do bucket listing. I prefer the thematic approach. You guys all see the board? Okay, so thematically is I'm going to pick a topic. My example here is fear. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to get out. I usually use a yellow legal pad because for some reason yellow, I think because I'm a spleen person, yellow just resonates with me, but you can whatever kind of paper you want. And when I do a thematic bucket list, the first thing I'm just going to list all the things I'm afraid of. Just brain dump them out on the screen, on a sheet of paper. Okay? Once I do that, I'm going to look at that list and I'm going to assign a number value of 0 to 10 to each of them. So I'm doing fear. I'm just going to I don't care what order they come out. Right? I just vomiting them out onto the screen, And then I'm going to assign a number value. So plane, I'm afraid of planes, so flying, 9. They're fighters, 10. Large women in comfortable shoes is a 3. Right? Pregnant VWs, 10. When I was a kid, my friends liked to play punch buggy. And so every time I would see a VW, I'd get slugged. So it's a 10. Kevin Hardy's latest, whatever, right? Kevin Hardy's one of my students. He's always got weird shit coming up. Anyway, the point is I'm going to assign number values to all of these, right? And then I'm going to reorganize these based on their charge. So I'm going to go from lowest to highest, right? So I'll start with my 1s. That's really hard to see. So I'm going to list all my level 1s, all the things that have a charge of 1, right? And then I'm going to, oops, that didn't work out the way I planned it. Then I'm going to list my 2s, my 3s, my 4s, my 5s, my 6s, 7, 8, 9, all the way up to my 10s. Now, here's a little helpful hint. If any of your stuff has a charge of 0, probably not a problem. Put it out there. But I'm going to list all the things I'm afraid of based on the charges. So here's my level 10, pregnant VWs, right? So that goes here. At the bottom of my list. Oh, that worked well. And all I'm going to do is rewrite my list, arranging it from the lowest charge to the highest charge. Now, the optional step, if you want to do this for training, as opposed to just clearing stuff, is for each of these numbers. So I have level 1. Let's say I'm mildly afraid of, let's say, water. I get nervous around water or boats, right? So that's a level 1 for me. What other level 1s might I have? I say that because my father-in-law and my mother-in-law are Chinese, and they're little. Anyway, moving on. But my point is, so I have my prime, right, my level 1, but do I have any other level 1s that I could kind of plug in here that I could work on? And I want to do that for each of those power levels. If you're pressed for time and you just want to deal with the most immediate stuff, then whatever you brain dump is fine. But the idea here is I'm going to take whatever techniques I know. Now, you guys learned 2 primary techniques tonight. You learned the magic frame, and you learned energy spinning, right? There is the same process whether you want to make something better or something worse. You just find the direction that gives you the feeling you want. Instead, amplify the spin, put it back in, let the program install. Okay? You did learn color breathing. I gave you a little put it in. You would just cycle through all those techniques until you've gotten the result that you want. But when you start to train and you want to start to work on your own stuff, take the time to get these things out on a physical piece of paper. The very act of writing things on a piece of paper begins the venting process. Because you have to write these things out. Your neurology calibrates that as expressing. Energy starts moving through your hands, through your nerves, through the muscles of your fingers, in pen onto the paper. If you want to take it, if you're into energy, you want to take it even further, get yourself a wooden pen, sand all the paint off, and now write in pencil through the stripped off pencil, and now you're using your wood energy with the wood element, which is your stress energy, by the way, in the body, the wood element. So now you'll actually vent more because now you have a correspondence going. But for those of you who aren't into the woo stuff, don't worry about it. Writing works just fine with a ballpoint pen. Okay? We get that out. Just the act of venting it onto a page causes you to begin resolving it. Then when you look at it and you measure it, you take yourself from the same level as the trauma to a meta position, which gives you control. I'll give you guys a little quick example of that in a minute, but now we're above it. The act of measuring it dissociates you from it and gives you the ability to gain perspective. Before you even started resolving it, you're already resolving it. Okay? I don't normally tell people that part, but I usually trick them. Then what are you going to do? You're going to start with your level ones. You're going to point to where you feel it. You're going to ask yourself, is it okay to get rid of this? Is there any reason that I might want to keep it? Go with your first impression. If you get anything other than a resounding yes or a resounding no, frame it. You start with your magic frame. You say, okay, if there were a picture floating in the space around me that represents that feeling of frequency, picture I can reach out and touch, where would it be? Boom. Nail it back there. Check in. Is it gone? It's gone. Move on to the next one. If it isn't, point to where I feel it. Scale of 0 to 10. Rate the intensity. Notice there's a color connected to that feeling. What's the color? First impression. Reach in, grab that color, take it out. Notice it's spinning. What direction it's spinning? First impression. What direction makes it better? Gives me what I want instead. Find the direction. Double the spin. Double the speed. Double the force. Double the magnitude. Keep doubling it. Boom. Right? Let it install. When you're done, don't rush the process. This is the secret. If it takes you 20 minutes to let that program reload, let it. Most of you won't take more than 3 minutes. It'll seem like an hour, right? Scan, check in with your body. Is it gone? Did it move? Did it change? And then depending on what happens next, you can go right into color breathing. What color is it? What color would give me what I want instead? Read it through. Is it gone? No, then you move on. Magic frame it, and you just cycle. And you can do them in any order that you want. You follow me? That's why I gave you these 3 techniques. Because every time one pathway closes, the other's open. And it becomes like Legos. And you can just chain them together in any way you want. Right? But the secret is you want to build a mechanism at the unconscious level that automatically handles this stuff. And the way you do that is by letting the unconscious mind win. How do you do that? You start with the level 1 monsters. You kill enough level 1 monsters, you gain experience points. Now you go to level 2. Follow me? And you just work through the list. Now by the time you hit the 4s, the 5s, and the 6s, you will have built up such a history of success with that technique that a lot of times your unconscious mind will just start resolving shit. It'll be like a little antivirus going around looking for shit to fix. Right? When we did the belief change workshop, conversational belief change, we had people write down all their limiting beliefs, and then we taught them each of the 14 reframe patterns. By the end of the 3 days, they couldn't have a negative belief. Because every time they came up, you were there. He couldn't have a negative. He couldn't come up with a negative belief because he would have framed it instantly. He got so conditioned to just changing perspective on what he thought was true and unchangeable that he was like, what am I? Right? So there's lots of ways to do these things. Right? This is a lot. I gave you a lot. I know. So I have a couple of requests. Did you guys have fun? Did you learn a lot of cool stuff? Did I talk way too fucking much? If you had a good time and you got value from tonight, please post good things to our meetup. If you didn't enjoy it, you didn't get value, please post to somebody else's meetup. But can I come off the mic for a second? Okay? Oh, I don't want to give him that. You don't want anything special, do you? Damn you, Moss. All right, so I have is it a relationship workshop? What am I doing this weekend? Oh, okay. All right, so I'll tell you what, I wasn't going to do this. It was obviously Moss's idea, which means I'm going to regret it. But I have a virtual event coming up this weekend. It's called Get the Love You Want the Way You Want It. It's a combination of my Attraction Mastery course and my Soulmate Secrets program, combined with a healthy dose of my Law of Attraction training. And it was specifically designed for people who are on my romance workshop. I did a webinar a couple weeks ago. I broke out all my relationship products that I created many, many years ago. I gave it away, and I decided to give them a free or VIP ticket to the virtual tent. If anybody wants to join in on that 3-day training, we'll give you a half-price ticket voucher. Just see Moss; he'll explain all the details. It's a virtual thing, so you don't even have to show up in person. But it'll be through Zoom. It'll start 10 a.m. on Friday, and Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So, yeah, that's about all I have to say about that. So, I want to, on behalf of NLP Power, and yes, sir.
This is still going through my mind. Finish open loop. And then you go back to the year. That's still on my mind.
Oh, this? Flip the script. That's what we just did with bucket listing. Yeah, because what happens is your nervous system will always draw your focus to the most traumatic things first, which by definition is the thing you've had the most trouble getting rid of. So you have a bigger history of failure with those things than anything else. So if you want to be able to deal with those levels of things, and you're not willing to work with somebody trained or outside of yourself to do that, you have to retrain yourself on smaller monsters. Build up your success and confidence level and skill set, and then take on the bigger ones. Now, what I didn't tell you, which I will tell you now, is that if you do this the way I'm teaching you, by the time you hit the 8s, 9s, and 10s, they won't feel any different than the 1s, 2s, and 3s. Because as you step through this process, the perceived level of difficulty from one level to the next is only 1. When people see the level 1 and the level 10s, a lot of times they think, oh my God, they're so far in between the intensity of the 10s versus the 1s. How am I ever going to get there? But when you break it down and you train this way, it resources you differently, right? What you can't overcome through instinct and genetic programming, you have to overcome through training and understanding. So this allows you to flip that script, because your natural tendency is to focus on the most heinous things in your life first, and it makes sense. It's evolutionarily adaptive. It's why your ancestors survived. But the reptile brain doesn't really care about your happiness. It has 2 jobs: to keep you alive and move the genes forward. Anything else is icing on the cake. So it will keep you alive, but it doesn't necessarily care if you're depressed or not. Right? So you need other techniques to fix that, to move that needle. Does that make sense? Okay. Yeah.
I was given the mic, so I actually had the permission to ask a question.
So I say that again?
I was given the mic, so I naturally had the permission to ask a question.
Oh.
So my question is, I'm not shy, so I like to talk to people.
Uh-huh.
And I started realizing I was doing something and I'm not sure. And it's more of a confirmation of, is this ethical for me to do this? I started kind of fixing people.
Without their permission?
No, with their permission.
Okay.
I always ask for their permission, but the ethical part is there's no follow-up. I guide them into meditation. I see their change. Some people have like this, what the hell just happened? It didn't work. And some people are like, what the heck happened?
Mm-hmm.
Why do I feel the way that I do?
Mm-hmm.
So I have like the 2 aspects. And I don't give them no information. I kind of just say, have a nice day. Hope you have a wonderful day. And I walk away. But I have this feeling of like, do I should I contact them? Like, should I follow up? Like, how do I know?
Well, if they know you did an intervention, then you should absolutely follow up because you did an intervention.
And if you charge more,
Yeah, that's true.
But I'm not charging you.
Well, we'll work on that next. I demand all of you clinicians charge more money. You're needed, right? But no, if you're moving through the world being a tzaddik, which is just a good saint type person moving through the world, it's like a highway to heaven. Michael Landon going around fixing people and then moving on. That's one thing. But if you're intentionally eliciting a process with somebody and moving them through a process, whether you're getting paid for it or not, it's probably a good idea for you to be conscientious enough to follow up and see what the results of your change work or your intervention is.
So should I just stop talking to people?
That's something you have to decide. I would take it in and up. Okay. I know what the presuppositions in your language indicate to me, but that's not up to me to say. Right? So, any other questions before I turn you loose on the world? Yes. What did in and up mean? Check in with your soul, go up to God and ask for God's answer. I can't finish. Here we go. We're a bit of a mystery school in that we're going to move you through different levels of consciousness raising and give you access to higher and higher levels of ability based on the work that you do. So you're going to reach a point, if you keep clearing your stuff away, you're going to discover, or I should say, rediscover who you are, which is a soul, which is a light. You're not male, you're not female. You're light. You're a fragment of divine. And that part of you is always connected to the higher part. And so when you reconnect with that part of you, that's the part that will tell you what's right and what's wrong for you. And so we tell you it's not about good, it's not about evil, it's about doing the right thing. And the right thing is always based on what comes from your heart and your soul and from God. And so when we have these situations or these cases of should I do this or should I not do this, you can ask everybody and their brother what they think. But at the end of the day, what's right for you is what comes through that pipeline. And sometimes that's easy, and actually it's almost never easy. But it almost always is the right thing, yeah.
So I know this answer, but I just don't know how to explain it. So when someone says, what do you mean by higher or God? Like they don't believe in God, how do I explain to them in a way that they would understand?
What's your belief about what's your cosmology? What's your belief about, if they're atheists, then the highest they can ever go is their parents.
So ask them,
What does your inner parent say?
inner parents?
They'll rebel against that right away and do the opposite. No, you have to figure out what a person's spiritual orientation is before you start talking about these things. As much of it as I do, I don't even like to talk about it in these groups because it gets really, really, really quick, and I know a lot of people are into that, but I can't go to the anatomy book and point to a chakra. So I'll explain all of these phenomena in terms of neurology, protein physiology, things of that nature, because we can prove that. Right? So when you start talking to people about their higher power, you ask them, what's your concept of the higher power? Do you believe in one? Ask it for the right answer.
Higher power is the most.
Well, most people have some concept, unless you're a complete atheist, and even a lot of atheists, interestingly, believe in energetics. Pretty interesting that they won't accept the concept of God or even the other guy or girl or whatever it is, but they'll believe in energy and law of manifestation and metaphysics. It's an interesting conundrum. But so, any other questions? Thank you all for coming. Okay, God bless. Have a safe. Buy lots of cookies, eat lots of candy. We'll hang out while we tear down. I'll answer any questions that you have. Thank you all for staying so late. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
it.